Chapter 1. Winter releases to win. In a said region where the mountains whisper to the wind and the trees keep ancient secrets, there lived a remarkable woman named Lucia. I didn't know her, but I could tell right away that she was special. I felt a fire in my chest, a deep need to be seen and understood, not by vanity, but for the desire that his art, his soul, spilled in each piece of mud. In some corner of the world, you'll find that Lucia's pottery echoes her passion. With a heartfelt touch, she shaped the earth, and many were enchanted by the magic in every curve. Each piece was like a conversation with the unseen, but it wasn't enough to bring her joy. For years, her jugs sat unnoticed in the people market, overlooked by many. Other works, more commercial, sold more quickly. But her heart was in the art she made with ease. It's like the world is dusting you off, making it hard to see your true value. But Lucia's journey is different. She started with her heart, wanting to create something new. She learned about marketing, offering discounts to fit into the changing times. She even lowered the price of her work, which made her shudder. Every night, she felt tired, thinking that someone would see her and love her. As if the world was a dusty book, waiting to be read. Lucia's journey began with a decision to create from the heart. She learned about marketing, offered discounts to adapt to fashions, and even reduce the price of her works. This made her shudder, perhaps. Every night, exhausted, she thought, someone will see me, and some looked, but they didn't see. Bought by compassion or they dribbled coldness. Lucia returned home not because of the lack of coins, but for their weight of disappointment. Years passed, and the fire that once drove him now burned inside. Inspiration, but of frustration. Their light fingers, as wind now, molded the mud with anxiety. Will it be this piece that will open the doors? Was repeated while his hands trembled from the pressure, until a day, when something happened, not an external event, but an internal collapse. It was winter, and the grey sky seemed to reflect its state of encouragement. He sat in front of his lathe and looked at the mud without touching it. Tears silently fell on the table, not sadness, but resignation. He repeated, his hands quivering with emotion, until one day, something incredible happened. It wasn't an external event, but an internal shift. It was winter, and the grey sky seemed to reflect his state of encouragement. He sat in front of his lathe and looked at the mud without touching it. Tears silently fell on the table, not sadness, but a quiet understanding. It wasn't fatigue that brought about this release, but a silent agreement. It worked because he had forgotten, because he started at that moment and uttered a phrase in a low voice that, without knowing it, invoked an ancestral law that shaped why I breathe, not to see me, but because this makes me feel alive. And then, he made with it wasn't fatigue that led to the release, but rather a shared understanding, a silent one. It all worked because I had forgotten, because he started at that moment and spoke in a low voice, uttering a phrase that, without knowing it, invoked an ancestral law. This law shaped why I breathe, not to see me, but because it makes me feel alive. And with the same softness of his childhood, with the same passion he had when he first made his vessel at 9 years old, he began to create. He stopped trying to like, stopped trying to sell, and started living in the moment. And what emerged was something truly beautiful. True finished 3 pieces in silence, placed them next to the window, and went to sleep for the first time in years. With the same softness of his childhood, and with the same passion that had fueled his first vessel at 9 years old, he began to create. He no longer wanted to like, no longer wanted to sell, but rather, he wanted to be. And what arose was something different, something more than beautiful. True finished 3 pieces in silence, placed them next to the window, and went to sleep for the first time in years. Rest deeply. Peace did not come from achievement, but from the freedom of not needing anything. That week, without looking for anything, everything changed. A collector who was traveling through the town entered a little cafeteria in the corner between plants. He saw a mud sculpture of a woman with her eyes closed and her exposed heart. Rest deeply, my friend. Peace doesn't come from achieving things, but from being free of need. One week, everything changed. A collector was traveling through the town and happened to pass by a little cafeteria. He saw a mud sculpture there, a figure of a woman with her eyes closed and her heart exposed. Something in that piece touched him, and the owner told him about Lucia. The rest is history. The recommendation, the visit to the workshop, the offer of an exhibition in the capital, all of it happened. Lucia hadn't touched a single door, but they opened on their own. This invisible power to release the history of Lucia is not unique. It's a manifestation of a little understood universal law. When you release a desperate desire, you become a natural magnet. What many people don't understand is that when you pursue something with too much intensity, it repels you. You can generate energy from a lack by simply letting the universe know that you don't have what you need to be happy. This vibration of lack can sometimes create an invisible shield that prevents abundance from flowing to you. The universe doesn't respond to your words, but it does respond to your energy. And energy isn't about effort, but about giving yourself permission to receive, trust, and flow with the water. Here's a helpful exercise: try drinking water with your hand. If you squeeze your fist, the water will escape. But if you open your palm and let the water in, it will flow in easily. Your life works like a wish that's waiting to be granted. Your mind is full of thoughts, and you're doing your best. You might be feeling a bit worried, but that's just your soul's way of trying to protect you. Your soul is quiet, open, and confident. This principle has been taught by wise teachers and mystics for thousands of years. They called it by many names: Google entirism, the art of not delivering entirism, contemplative energy alignment in modern manifestation philosophies. But the nucleus is the same. The more forces, the more blocks, the more you allow, the more you receive. The art of remembering Lucia. No. He learned something new, remembered what he already knew, and realized that its value does not depend on the world's response. I'm so excited to share with you the most amazing thing about your connection. When you let go of the desire to be approved by others, the world starts to cheer you on because you're not doing things to please them anymore. You're being your true self, and that's incredibly attractive. It's like a peaceful act of surrender. You don't have to make major life changes right away. Just start with a special act of release. Here's a little exercise for you: find a quiet place, put your phone on silent, close your eyes, and think about something you really want, like love, success, health, or recognition. See how that desire starts to take shape in your body. Wherever you feel it, whether in your chest, stomach, or shoulders, just take a moment to feel the tension and let yourself be open to it. Don't judge it too harshly, and remember that you're not alone in this. Imagine opening your hands and saying, either out loud or in your mind, "I release the need for this." Remember that if it's meant to be, it will find you, and if not, something better will come along. Take a deep breath and stay there for a moment. Repeat this act every day, not as a trick to get something, but as a loving ritual back to you. Chapter 2, The Paradox of Hard Effort, Throbbing of a City That Never Sleeps, where the watches seem to run faster and the days slid by between cups of coffee and urgent emails, Matthias lived. He was 37 years old and had a big ambition. His ambition was so big that it barely fit in your small apartment on the 20th floor. Matthias was a financial consultant. Every day, he woke up at 5 in the morning. He exercised for 10 more minutes for fashion than for connection. Then he threw himself into the sea of tasks, calls, and strategies. I read productivity books, listened to motivational podcasts, and had hit statements in every corner of his mirror. "If I don't move," he said with a warm smile. His life was like a dance, always moving from one thing to the next. But even though he worked so hard, things didn't always go as planned. He thought he was climbing the ladder of success, but it wasn't happening the way he expected. His clients were happy, but they didn't really recommend him. His personal investments weren't doing so well, and it was starting to affect his health. One night, after a particularly tough day, Matthias collapsed on the couch, exhausted. The silence of the apartment was deafening. On his chest, he had a book about success, and a weight on his shoulders that wasn't from a physical illness, but from the invisible pressure of always trying to do more, to be more, and to give more. Without having to do anything, and even though he was exhausted, he heard something. It wasn't an external voice, it was more like an internal echo, a soft intuition, like the whisper of a truth that he had always been waiting to be heard. And if it's not about doing more, but making less. In the midst of his exhaustion, he felt something, but he didn't have to do anything. It was like an internal echo, a soft intuition, like the whisper of a truth that he had always been waiting to hear. And if it's not about doing more, but making less, then the law of the least effort nature can help. He doesn't have to strive, and yet everything happens with sublime perfection. The sun doesn't have to get up with an alarm. The flowers don't have to drink. Strategic decisions don't have to be made to bloom. Birds don't have to rehearse to sing to dawn, and yet everything happens, everything moves, blooms. The law of the least effort. Nature is all about how things just happen. The sun doesn't have to rise early, flowers don't need to drink water to bloom, birds don't have to practice to sing. Everything just happens, and everything moves. But then, humans think that we have to work hard and sacrifice a lot to be successful. Where did this idea come from? It starts when we're kids, with things like, don't exercise if you don't work out more than everyone else, you'll never be the best. Work is important, but there's a big difference between doing something because you're excited and doing something because you have to. Matthias and his change over the next few days. Matthias didn't totally change his life, but he started noticing that he wanted to be in control of everything. He started planning every step. I was feeling a bit insecure, and I asked myself, what would happen if I took a break from some things? I had a tendency to want to have the final say in every meeting, and this sometimes led to some of my colleagues feeling a bit neglected. Instead of working on a big project, they would go for walks in the park. At first, he felt guilty, like I was falling behind, but then something interesting happened. Our relationships at work got better, and our clients started to trust us more. Why did I still feel so worried? Then, one morning, I got a surprise offer to lead a new project, just like the one I had turned down before. What had changed? Not the external effort, but its internal energy. The universe doesn't reward effort, it rewards alignment. We often live under the illusion that the more we strive, the more we'll succeed. But that linear logic ignores one more law deep in the universe. It operates through flow, not fighting. Quantum physics has already confirmed that reality isn't rigid, it's undulating, fluid, sensitive to attention and energy frequency. Your internal status molds your external experiences much more than your isolated actions. If you're interested in learning more about this, I'd love to chat. You might act from fear, and even the best plan can be tainted by resistance. But if you act from trust, even a simple action can open doors you never thought possible. It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? The more you fight for something, the more you resist. It's like trying to catch a butterfly with your hands. The more you run, the more she escapes. But if you just sit still, she might perch on your shoulder. That doesn't mean you should stop fighting, though. You still need to act, but from a different place, from a state of non-hey. Let's work on improving your fluidity by starting with a clear mind and avoiding urgent stories. Royal, let's nurture a productive surrender. 1. Eleanor, a writer who was blocked for years, tried her best to write your first novel every day. She sat in front of her computer, feeling a mix of fear and pressure. She erased words and phrases that didn't quite fit, and in the end, she was left with empty pages and a sense of self-reflection. Eleanor, a writer who struggled with self-esteem, had a breakthrough one day when she decided to take a walk through the city. She took with her a small notebook, not to write, but to observe. And that night, without planning, she wrote 3 complete chapters of a story that she didn't even know existed. What unlocked her creativity was the delivery. 2. Lewis, a tired-heart athlete, was a professional runner. Every competition was a battle, and he trained more than anyone. He slept little and was very demanding of himself, but his results were mediocre. One night, after an injury, he was in a bad way. After some thought, he decided to stop and only run when he felt it. After 2 months of hard work, he ran his best time in years, and he looked so happy. Since he was a teenager, he's been working on integrating exercise and flow to practice the art of effortless action. During the next 7 days, try to find an area where you've been trying too much. It could be your work or your health. Every morning, take a few minutes to sit in silence and ask yourself, what am I trying to control here? What would happen if I let go a bit today? This will change your internal question from what do I owe today, to what would happen if I let go today. Hey, let's talk about how we can make today even better. Here's a thought: if you're feeling inspired by something that popped into your head, go for it. Here's another idea: if you get into a spontaneous conversation, dive in. Even if it's not on your to-do list, go for it. And here's a great one: at the end of the day, jot down how you're feeling about the chapter. Now, let's talk about chapter 3. It's all about the illusion of control. Remember when you were in a bustling city, and technology was at the heart of it? There was this guy, David, who was a total planner. He had an organized agenda, using 3 different apps to keep track of his finances, food, and productivity. He'd read all these books about success and discipline. And performance was everything to you. You paid close attention to every detail, but there was always something missing: life itself. Every time I thought everything was under control, something unexpected happened. A call came in. A project failed due to external causes. A relationship ended without any warning. And every time that happened, David suffered. He was torn up inside, and it was hard to put into words. If I did everything right, why did it go wrong? He lived with his heart in a fist, and his muscles were tense like steel cables. He slept, unfortunately. Although his environment admired his efficiency, he was a vacuum. Even the most detailed planning can't always prepare you for the unexpected. Your computer suddenly froze just before a presentation, and you felt a rush of panic. You tried to restart, but your phone didn't respond. You desperately tried to send an emergency message, but it fell to the ground. The screen stopped in the middle of the chaos, and you felt a sense of helplessness. You felt like something was breaking, as if a part of you was giving in to the situation. For the first time in years, you didn't feel any guilt for not doing something. You'll feel so much better when you realize that giving in is actually a kind act. It's not about having total control, it's about recognizing that sometimes we're afraid of what we don't understand. We are taught from a very young age to control our emotions, our qualifications, our image, and our future. People want to believe that if we have everything under control, we'll be happy and successful. But when you look closely at your own life, have you ever noticed that even the best plans sometimes fall apart? Have you ever wanted people to like you, but it didn't work out? Hey, have you ever thought about trying the opposite? I'm curious, how many times have you tried to control your thoughts and feelings, and ended up feeling more and more controlled yourself? It's so tempting, isn't it? Control can feel like it promises certainty in an unpredictable world. But the truth is, it's just an empty promise. The problem isn't in trying to control what you can't control. The problem is in holding on to plans as if your life depended on them. When you do that, control becomes a prison, and you can't even imagine how to live without it. David realized this on his own. He noticed that trying to control every detail didn't make him happy. It's natural to feel more anxious than usual, and it's completely normal to feel more peace than before. More people moved away than stayed close, and it's understandable to feel worried about the future. It's natural to fear that he escaped, and that fear led to a big change. Marta's walls, and Marta's protection were there to help hundreds of people heal their relationships, but yours was different. She built walls, and I watched everything, analyzed every word and gesture, as if loving it. It was like a surgical operation. I don't want to hurt myself, but in his attempt to avoid pain, he also avoided the love control. For her, it was like a protective armor, but it also felt like a cage. A day after a particularly painful rupture, he understood his surveillance was his loneliness in disguise, and he released his practice confidence to stop interpreting each message as a way to allow the other to feel heard. In that space, the first flourished. The universe flows, does not dominate. The nature never tries to control. The river does not negotiate with the stones, and the rain does not ask permission. Don't worry, the wind will take you on the right path, even if it doesn't always go the way you expect. The wind finds its perfect course, and you do too. Why do you think life is like a wild animal that will devour you? The universe doesn't need to be controlled. It responds to vibrations. If you're afraid, you become rigid. If you trust, you become expansive. When you release control, you're saying, I trust. I trust in something greater than my little release plan. I'm not giving up here. A common doubt arises, should I live without structure? Stop planning. Stop worrying about nothing. To release control doesn't mean living without direction. Hey, friend. Here's a little secret, having direction without being obsessed is all about embracing life's journey with a gentle touch. Instead of seeing it as your rival, let it be your partner. You can plan, but let go of the need to control everything. You can take action, but trust the process. What emerges through art isn't about doing or not doing, but about how you connect with your practice. Here's a friendly exercise you can try. Over the next 3 days, do this conscious ritual. First, Identify those moments when you feel a bit stressed. Then, think about a situation you're trying to control, like a person, a project, or a response. Next, feel the pressure. Close your eyes and bring your attention to your body. If you feel any tension in your chest or neck, or if you feel any discomfort in your shoulders, just take a moment to breathe deeply in that area. Imagine exhaling all of that tension and worry right there in that area. Now, let's all try to relax and trust that everything is going to be okay. We'll all take a different action to help ourselves feel more at ease. You were going to overplane the space, so I thought I'd help out by solving the problem of another. Let's see what happens. The miracle of not knowing what will happen. David, after releasing his control, discovered something more valuable than success, tranquility, trust, and, curiously, things began to flow. Spontaneous opportunities, unexpected connections, solutions, no. He had planned. Life was saying, now that you don't try to dominate me, I can help. Chapter 4, Magnetic Power. Frederick was still walking in circles, going round and round. At 10 it was 10:43 at night, and Frederick was still pacing back and forth in his office. The space he occupied was illuminated, a beacon of light in the otherwise dim surroundings. He had been working on a stack of papers, their pages spread out before him, each with multiple tabs. A cup of coffee sat on the table, its warmth a comforting reminder of better times. The project plans, carefully crafted with immense effort, lay before him. He had started this company from the ground up, and it was a labor of love. He had a clear vision for the goals, and a detailed plan to achieve them. But despite his best efforts, things weren't going as smoothly as he'd hoped. The customer flow was a bit unpredictable, and it was causing some inconvenience. He was feeling a bit down, with his equipment not working right and sales being all over the place. He was really tired, like every day was a struggle. It felt like he was pushing a rock up a hill, only to watch it fall again at the end of the day. But you know what? He could stop if he wanted to. Everything would fall apart, he thought, until one night something different happened. He turned off his computer, not because he was done, but because he couldn't sit in his armchair in front of the window without music or anything to distract him. For the first time in years, he stayed still. In the silence, he could hear his own breathing, and it was incredible. He felt as if he were being reborn, not with words or ideas, but with something more subtle. It was as if, for a few minutes, everything he had been searching for, everything he had been looking for, solutions, inspiration, clarity, was right there in front of him. All he had to do was ask. Frederick didn't know it yet, but he had just touched the surface of a principle that had existed for millennia. Stillness is the master key that opens all doors closed. We're all in this together, and we're all trying to find the right balance. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that we have to be constantly active. The movement worships teach us that if we're not doing something, we're wasting time. But what if the truth is that success belongs to the fastest, the busiest, and the most aggressive? We're all in this together, and sometimes we might feel like we're addicted to being busy. We pause for a moment, and suddenly we feel like we have to check the phone or open the mail. We hope for a reason, and we fill ourselves with tasks. We all know that sometimes it's hard to face ourselves when we're busy, right? But here's a little secret, sometimes the less noise you make, the more you can listen to that inner guide, true wisdom, and creativity. They don't come from mental chaos, but from the space between thoughts. And here's another thing, stillness isn't the same as passivity. There's a big difference between sitting and not moving and being completely active inside, fighting with your thoughts. Your body and mind can both be at peace and let your system really recharge. True stillness isn't about being apathetic. It's about being open and ready to embrace the natural flow of life, so it can move through you freely. The story of Clara. She was a professional violinist for many years. She studied technique with a lot of dedication. She practiced her performance every day. It was perfect, but her music didn't touch people's hearts. The judges recognized her technical precision, but they missed the heart and soul behind it. One day, she decided to spend some time on a spiritual retreat in the mountains. There, she met a teacher who heard her touch and said something that would have a huge impact on her life: you play with your body, but not with your silence. At first, she didn't quite understand how to play with silence. She learned to listen to what wasn't being said, the space between notes, the empty space in her thoughts. There, within her, lived the music that nobody taught her. Clara spent the following days in absolute silence, walking among the trees and sitting in front of the river. I watched her without saying anything. After taking a look at when he started touching again, it was clear that something had changed. His technique was the same, but his presence was something else entirely. People began to cry as they listened to the music, which no longer came just from his fingers, but from a deeper place, from the center of his being. The magnetism of calmness. When a person is calm is something that Deep Magnetica thinks of. Someone who enters a room without saying anything captures everyone's attention, not because of his voice or appearance, but because of his inner state. Power is not about how loud you are, it's about being present. And being present is something you can cultivate in stillness. You don't have to convince the world, you just have to remember that it doesn't happen when you're doing 1,000 things at once. When you stop and listen to your inner self, that's when you'll find the answers you seek. Even physics can confirm this. Quantum mechanics has shown that particles' power is not about how loud you are, but about being present. And being present is only possible when you're still. You don't need to convince the world. You just need to remember that it doesn't happen when you're doing a million things at once. When you stop and listen to your inner space, you'll see that physics also confirms this. Quantum mechanics has shown that particles don't behave in a fixed way until they are observed. Everything remains in potential and in multiple possibilities until a conscience focuses. And, to be clear, that conscience needs silence, needs a pause, and needs space to choose. In a hurry, you react to the still, you choose noise as a distraction. Many flee from silence because they are afraid to meet with themselves. When you're not in a rush, you can still find moments of peace and quiet. These moments are like little windows into your soul, where you can face your emotions, thoughts, and even discomfort. But here's the cool part, when you face these moments of stillness, they don't just make you uncomfortable. They are actually the first steps on a journey that can transform you. It's like the discomfort is just a mask for your external ego, trying to control you. But if you stay present and breathe, you can find your true self. You know, when you sit and breathe, all that stuff that you've been holding in, it comes out. And that's when you start to really understand yourself. I'm not talking about sitting and meditating like you normally do. I'm talking about stopping all that stuff that you don't even realize is running through your head. You can do it anywhere. You can be in your room, you can be in the park, you can even be in your car. Just stop, breathe, and be still. What's your truth? It's the practical clarity you embrace every day. I invite you to try a simple practice that's not about meditating the traditional way. Instead, it's about stopping the unconscious impulse to make your mind magnetic. Find a place where you're not interrupted. You could be in your room, a park, or even in your car. If you're silent, sit down comfortably. You don't need to have a posture. Just relax your body and put a clear intention. I am going to stay still, not to obtain something, but to remember who I am. Close your eyes and feel your breathing. Don't fight against the thoughts that arise. Imagine they pass in front of you like clouds. You are not the thought, you are heaven, which contains it. Remain like this. Take it easy on yourself and give it 5 minutes. Then, when you're ready, you can up the amount of time to 10, 15, or even 20 minutes a day. Remember, results don't happen overnight. You might not see the fruits of your labor right away, but trust me, they are there. Your gifts will come to you later in the form of clarity, peace, synchronicities, and natural magnetism. Think of your body as a vacuum. Everything starts from nothing. The universe came from silence. Your heart beats in pauses. The most beautiful art emerges from the space between the known and the unknown. Your next great leap will probably not come from a new strategy, but from a moment of deep, Frederick discovered the power of conscious action after incorporating a simple, daily habit. Every morning, he sat in his chair in front of the window for 10 minutes without responding to any emails, writing, or planning. Instead, he chose to fully embrace the present moment, allowing himself to be present and breathe. It was during these moments of absolute surrender that he began to receive the clearest ideas, simplest solutions, and most accurate decisions. Everything he had been searching for finally came to him. Chapter 5, The magic of getting lost in a minimalist apartment with paredes white and shelves full of books of personal development. Andrea lived in a beautiful minimalist apartment with white walls and shelves full of books on personal development. She was 32 years old and had a respectable career. A psychologist and a secret obsession helped her improve every day. Every morning, she started with a perfect yoga routine, looked in the green, beaten mirror, reviewed her weekly objectives, and meditated to align her vibration. She read a new book every week. He wrote in his diary 3 times a day and never missed a Sunday without. A psychologist and a secret obsession. Every morning, she started with a perfect yoga routine, made statements in front of the green, beaten mirror, reviewed its weekly objectives, and meditated to align her vibration. She read a new book every week. She wrote in her diary 3 times a day and did not spend a single Sunday without. Review your personal progress. But despite all that effort, Andrea, I don't know. I felt better the more transformed, the more incomplete. I missed something all night before. I am not who should be. A constant voice inside her, repeating, you are not ready. You are not enough yet. You have to improve more. You have to polish more. You have to heal more. I've been thinking a lot about my progress lately, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm not as ready as I'd like to be. I feel like I'm always trying to improve, polish, and heal, but it's like I'm stuck in this cycle. I've been working on becoming a better version of myself, and I've seen some progress, but it's been a bit of a journey. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. It wasn't a big drama, just this feeling of emptiness when I looked at another book that promised happiness. I closed it gently, and he stayed in silence. For the first time, I had this new question in my heart: if there's nothing wrong with me, why am I searching so much? They taught us to search constantly to become the best version of ourselves. We all have our own journeys, and it's important to be gentle with ourselves as we work through our challenges. Every step of the way, we are learning, growing, and healing. But, and this is a really important but, we have to be careful not to fall into the trap of thinking that we're broken. The more we believe that, the more we're stuck in that belief. I know it can be hard to see the truth, but it's essential to understand that we're all on our own unique path. The more we seek, the more we might stray from our true path. But, and this is the beautiful part, when we find more, we also risk losing something valuable along the way. There was a wise teacher who once said, only the one who is really lost can meet. Why, when you release the ideas you have on who should be you, can you see who you already are? It's only when you get tired of building masks that you can look at your true face. It's only when you stop searching for the truth on the outside that the truth on the inside can appear. I stopped practicing Affirm for weeks, and it didn't help. I was allowed to eat without feeling guilty. I didn't meditate when I was sleepy, so I wasn't very productive. I fell into disorder and a loss of structure, and I began to feel like I was losing my character. But something wonderful began to emerge, a feeling of presence that didn't need validation. It's that inner voice we all have, the one that doesn't want to be corrected, but when it speaks up, it's like a wake-up call. It's like a special moment on an inner journey where you realize you don't need to become anyone else. You already have everything you've been searching for. All you have to do is stop pretending the identities we build, the strong, the successful, the enlightened, the productive, the healed. They are just layers we put on because we're afraid. We're afraid that without them, we won't be enough. We're afraid that if we show ourselves as we are, we don't need to be loved, but the truth is this: you are your best self when you leave to try to be. Andrea began to rediscover things that had buried: his love for painting, your laugh without purpose, your scandalous need for rest, your spontaneity. With each layer that I released, with each structure that left, I felt lighter, more free, more alive. The story of Edna, the voice that was always Edna, was a singer who had trained in conservatories and worked with. He studied the styles of famous vocal coaches. His voice was technically perfect, but something felt missing. I didn't get excited. He tried to imitate what he saw, adapting to fashions and adjusting each song as if it were a mathematical equation. One day, during a hearing, he forgot the letter. Instead of stopping, he improvised, and for the first time, sang from a place without technique, without strategy, without perfection. He sang from she. The judges were silent. At first, nobody clapped because everyone was still processing what they'd just seen. Edna didn't win the contest, but he won something even more precious, his true voice. Since then, he's stopped being an artist who's recognized and started singing only what comes from his heart. The result is something born from his soul, unavoidable, genuine success, followers, a sincere, real connection. It's not because he's improved, but because perfection is a journey, not an end goal. A lot of people think that success and realization are the same thing, but they are actually different. Success is like reaching a destination, and realization is more like arriving at a new understanding or perspective. The wise ones, like Buddha, didn't just focus on self-improvement. Jesus didn't try to make himself better, and the mystics didn't try to fill themselves up. They were transparent and didn't add things. The truth is, true transformation doesn't happen by collecting things, but by releasing them. Practice, exercise, and self-hey, let's do this together. Here's a fun exercise you can try on your own or with a friend. Over the next few days, try to find a quiet space where you can sit comfortably and breathe deeply, 3 times, if you can. When you're ready, let's talk about the labels you use to describe yourself. Do you have any responsibilities? Examples: must be strong, leader, healer, always positive. Now, picture this: each of those labels is a piece of clothing. One by one, gently place them to the side. Ask yourself, who am I without all this? Don't look for an answer. Instead, let the question linger, like a gentle question in the air for a few minutes. Let's imagine that each of those labels is a garment. One by one, take them smoothly and place them to the side. Ask yourself, who am I without all this? Don't look for an answer. Only remains in the question. Remains in that space of non-identity. For a few minutes, not as a vacuum, but as possibility. Practices this daily, or every time you feel caught in the demand to be someone. To lose you is not falling. It is returning home. The magic of getting lost is not in chaos, but in what happens when you don't need to know who you are. When you no longer define your value for your progress. When you no longer use your spirituality as armor. When you no longer fear looking. In your compassion, there's a space that's so tender and raw. It's a place without form, without achievement, and without structure, and it's there that the real magic begins. What you're experiencing is like a unique and unrepeatable expression of the universe. Chapter 6, The Power of Observer. Charles was a scientist who worked at a prestigious research institution, surrounded by telescopes, complex formulas, and equations that tried to explain the universe. His specialty physics, quantum, and since I was young, it had been a bit obsessive about the details. I loved order, but I needed uncertainty, too. There was a bit of a paradox in their studies, though, that disturbed the phenomenon of the observer. During one of his experiments, he observed that the behavior of subatomic particles changed according to whom I looked at and how. What seemed to be a particle became what it was. Energy took shape. At first, the invisible became the subject, which wasn't quite right in the procedure. But the data were clear every time. He and anyone else who focused their attention on a quantum system that acted on an observed altered reality. After a long night of study and confusion, Charles left the laboratory and sat under the starry sky with his face up and his heart full of questions. A different question, and if this too? Hey, I've got some thoughts on applying the principles of science to everyday life. Interior observer. What Charles discovered in his lab wasn't just some physical phenomenon, it was a spiritual law hidden in science. Many wise and mystics from different traditions have taught that consciousness can transform reality, both external and internal. Your thoughts and reality. You're the one observing them. Vedic wisdom. The eye with which I, dear friend, you are a part of God's eye. The beautiful thing about quantum physics is that it just confirms what the ancients already knew. Your attention is your creation, and what you look at with conscience changes not because of force, but because you are present. The sky is not confused with the clouds. Imagine that your mind is like heaven, and your thoughts, emotions, reactions, and sensations are clouds that go through it. Some are clear, and light ones are dark, loaded, stormy. But no cloud is heaven, and none is permanent. The problem is that when you're asleep, you think you are the cloud, the sadness, the fear, the anger, or the anxiety. But you're not the one who observes all that. You are the space where you are, the infinite sky. The story of Beatrice. The piece not to react. Beatrice was a sensitive woman, Generously, he was a deeply emotional guy, and anxiety was a constant companion in his life. It was like he was being dragged by his emotions, and everything affected him. Every look, every silence, seemed to carry an emotion, as if it were its very essence. I used to say in therapy, I am broken, but then one day, his therapist said something simple but revolutionary: Beatrice, don't say I am anxiety. There is anxiety in me. That phrase was the start of something really special. He started noticing his feelings as just another thing happening to him when he was scared. Instead of fighting it, he simply said, I'm noticing fear in me, and in doing so, I created a space between her and the emotion. That small space changed everything. What had previously controlled her was now contained by his conscience. What was once dominant was now a witness of his serenity. And that serenity did not come to control what I felt, but to leave. If your power is confused with it, how do you look at dark thoughts, painful emotions, and impulses that seem out of control? But the problem is not that. The true suffering appears and arises when you think they are. When you merge with an internal history, you forget that you can observe it without. You can find the space between you and the emotion. Don't worry, we can't stop the rain, but we can definitely stop wetting the bed. You might be wondering how to stop wetting. Well, the wise person doesn't fight with their mind. Instead, they see her coming and seeing her Japanese friend. The observer doesn't judge. One of the keys to the observer's power is that they don't judge. When you observe with judgment, you are inside the ego. You try to correct, change, and manipulate. But when you observe with love and neutrality, something sacred happens. Emotions lose strength and thoughts. When you're observing with love and neutrality, you're not fighting with your thoughts. You're not trying to fix or control everything. Instead, you're allowing yourself to be present and open to what's happening. This kind of observation is like a light that transforms the darkness around you. It doesn't just change your feelings, but also how you see the world, how you react to things, and the decisions you make. And the reason this happens is because the world doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your energy, and your energy depends on your level of. The energy is dissolved, transforming your presence and your reality. It changes your reality, your feelings, the things you attract, how you react, and the paths that open up for you. Why? Because the world does not respond to your words, it responds to your vibration, which depends on your level of consciousness. When you live as a victim, your thoughts vibrate in fear, lack, and control. When you live as an observer, your mind vibrates in peace, clarity, and openness, and the universe responds to that. Daily exercise is key. To observe, I invite you to practice this interior transformation technique, a simple but powerful ritual. Branch of Conscious Observer is a technique that you can do during the day. Choose a time when you feel like a victim, remember that your thoughts can be your ally. When you feel controlled by fear, your mind can offer peace, clarity, and openness. The universe is listening to you every day. I invite you to try this simple and powerful ritual. It's a way to observe your thoughts during the day. Choose a time when you're feeling emotionally affected. It could be a discussion, a concern, or a repetitive thought. Breathe deeply 3 times. From a place of awareness, I gently let go of anger, fear, and judgment. I observe this story. I don't say, I am not. I observe, and I feel the space between you and that. I acknowledge that you are no longer inside the emotion, but you're observing it from the outside. Stay there. Don't worry about changing it. Just take a look at it with love and gratitude. Your conscience will thank you for reminding them of who they are. Do it daily. Simple and complex. Just look at it and appreciate your conscience. See how that small change of perspective transforms your entire experience. The real awakens. Charles the scientist with him. Step of the months began to apply in his daily life what he had learned in the laboratory. No longer reacted with speed. No longer watched. No longer clung to being right. No longer listened. No longer pursued certainties. Allowed mystery. And so on. Began as a scientific experiment, became a spiritual path. Not changed his career or became mystical. But his way of living changed radically. Became lighter, more present, deeper, and best of all, free. Chapter 7, The Secret. Arthur was a natural. He had become an expert in selling. I knew all the tricks, psychology of the consumer, classic objections, the words that activated a sensation of urgency, the dramatic pauses, and the mirror work. He had read books, attended seminars, and practiced in front of the mirror thousands of times. Sometimes, his post in the market was impeccably decorated, the lights, the aroma of the incense, the disposition of the all carefully designed products. To persuade, and yet sales were unpredictable. Some days seemed to have a magnet, others could spend hours without. The only thing that seemed to matter was a lack of money. What could he do? He was always feeling tired. It felt like he had to work hard to make things happen. Every conversation was a bit of a struggle, and each customer was a new adventure. But one morning, his body just couldn't take it anymore. He woke up feeling really weak, not because he was seriously ill, but just because he was so tired. It wasn't just the lack of sleep. It was like he was running on empty, with no energy left to handle the day. Arthur, his charismatic and charming salesperson, felt like he was in a market all his own. People were just there, not saying much, but still, he felt their presence. They were watching him, breathing, smiling a little, but not really saying much. Then, something unexpected happened. More people showed up. I asked them to come, and they surprised me by staying to talk. They weren't trying to convince me, they just felt comfortable in their presence. They sold more than in all of the previous week, not because I did more, but because they stopped doing the effort of being themselves. The universe has a very particular function. It doesn't respond to your urgency, your need, or your strategy, but to your frequency. Energy people are the ones who achieve everything with apparent ease, not because they work less, but because they emit an open, quiet, aligned energy. There are others who are still striving. Hey, let's pause for a moment. It looks like they are not moving forward, and it's not because they are doing something wrong. It's more like your energy is being pulled in a certain direction. Take a look at the sign L of the fear of being desperate and losing control. What you put out into the world, your energy, is like a mirror. If you're feeling a sense of lack, you might find yourself attracting experiences that reflect that feeling. If you're feeling despair, you might find yourself in situations where you feel like you need to keep chasing something. But if you're spreading peace and trust, authenticity, the universe will bring you experiences that resonate with that positive state. It's like the law of no effort, law known by Soves. My dear friends, ancient mystics and teachers have shared some beautiful insights on the many forms of spiritual expression and attraction. So, my dear friends, don't pursue it. Instead, become the one who does not seek. Find, not do. It's not about inactivity, but rather, my dear friends, internal alignment. When you are aligned with what you want, you don't need to run after it because you already recognize your vibration as compatible. Remember the story of Oro when love comes, my dear friends. Only Oro had tried all the applications of dates organized by friends and tantra workshops. Spiritual retreats, astrology, and tarot readings had prepared him for the arrival of love, but he was still waiting. Each appointment brought him closer to his future partner, and he tried to show his perfect, wise, and fun self in every conversation. But he couldn't find peace until one day, he surrendered to the loneliness, not in bitterness, but with a sweet acceptance. He decorated her house for when she arrives, not for his own arrival. He decided to go for a walk in the park to read, smile, and enjoy the moment. One of those afternoons, while sitting in a cafeteria and enjoying a book, someone approached. It wasn't because she did something extraordinary, but because she exuded a vibe that aligned with the path of the alignment. It's all about being who you are, not who you want to be. This means that the things you attract in your life don't come from your desires, but from your true self. Hey, you want love. I know love. You want to feel like you're enough. You want opportunities. I know you're open to the unexpected. You want to be recognized. First, reconnect with yourself. When you're in a good place, the universe responds. It's like the effort you put in is like a math problem. The harder you try, the harder it gets. But when you're trying to get something because you're afraid of not having it, you're basically saying, I don't have it. I'm still. I need this to be okay. And that's what the universe is all about. It's not about what you say, what you do, or what you believe. It's about your true vibration. That's why, the more you focus on getting something else to go away, like a shadow you can never catch while you run after it, the more you're missing out. But if you stop and let the sun bathe the shadow, it'll align by itself. Daily exercise becomes a magnet. This simple practice will help you change your perspective. Approach to magnetismo ritual alignment. Magnetic chooses a strong desire: money, success, health. The one with the most weight. Today, close your eyes and feel the energy you are looking forward to. Now, ask yourself how you would feel to have this already. Connect with that feeling, even if you don't have it activated. Imagine you already lived it. Approach to magnetismo ritual alignment. Magnetic chooses a strong desire for money, success, and health. Today, close your eyes and feel the energy you're looking forward to. Now, ask yourself how you'd feel to have this already. Connect with that feeling, even if you don't have it activated. Imagine you already lived that emotion, as if you had already experienced it. Smile, and let your body relax. Open your eyes, and act from that energy. You don't look for it, you act as if you already live from there. During the day, repeat internally, what is for me already recognizes me. No. I need to pursue. I only allow me to find it. Do this for 7 days and observe how your internal status and external reality change. Everything comes to you. Backspace to receive things. Not they arrive when you chase them. They arrive when you become the space where they can manifest. A tree does not scream to attract the sun, it grows. A flower does not supplicate for attention alone. It blooms. You don't have to force anything. Just go with the flow because the universe doesn't listen to your demands. When you're in sync, you'll see more positive results than negative ones. After Arthur started focusing on what really mattered, he stopped reciting scripts and analyzing every client. He became more present, attentive, and curious. Not only did he sell more, but he also enjoyed real conversations. These conversations led to unexpected and abundant results. He understood that his strategy wasn't the whole story. It was his need to be present that made all the difference. When you focus on your needs, the whole world becomes your oyster. Chapter 8 was getting closer to the paradox. He didn't want anything, but he got everything he needed in the quiet halls of an old herb at university. He walked with his papers in his hands, holding them close to his chest. For 15 years, I had lived for one academic achievement, his name in magazines, important invitations to conferences, awards, and respect. He spent all his weekends and early mornings on personal relationships, and each article, what he wrote was a hidden plea: am I a good person? Am I enough? But he received silence again and again. He rejected the cruel world's algorithm. The academic world seemed cruel. To ignore its existence would be to ignore a part of you. His entrance mailbox was a gallery of friendly negatives. Your colleagues were more young people, and they advanced and he stayed behind. Frustration had become a taste permanent in your mouth until one day, after receiving your nth letter from rejection, Herbert closed his laptop. He simply couldn't follow what you were saying. It wasn't the physical tiredness or acute depression, it was somewhat more strange, a feeling of total vacuum, as if the desire to be recognized had consumed him. He didn't cry, angry, he just sat at his desktop with his head down and whispered, "No longer I want." It wasn't a sign of defeat, Serena. It wasn't a surrender born of despair, but rather a silent understanding. Maybe I don't need the world to see me anymore. That day, without knowing it, Herbert opened the door to an ancestral law. When you release the I wish, what long begins to look for desire as prison desire. It can be an engine, but it can also become a cage. Not because it is bad desire, but because attachment to desire creates tension, anxiety, and a vibration that says, what I want is far from me. I don't have it, and I need to reach it to be complete. This frequency is so special because it doesn't attract or repel. It's like a beautiful dance between you and the universe. The universe doesn't respond to your words, but it does respond to your vibration. It's a reflection of that beautiful lack of return. It's the secret of no need. When you're desperate, it's not indifference. It's the inner freedom that allows you to want without yearning, without needing to imagine, without forcing. When Herbert released this frequency doesn't attract or repel because you broadcast from a place of lack, and the universe responds not to your words but to your vibration. Simply reflect that lack of return. The secret of no need. The opposite of desire is not indifference, it's the inner freedom that allows you to want without yearning, without needing to imagine, without forcing. When Herbert released his need to be seen, his energy changed, and his mind became more clear. Clara started teaching without waiting, sharing knowledge for the pure joy of it. For the first time in years, he began to enjoy what he did, without being obsessed with the result. And, as with all the spiritual paradoxes, he was in a state of surrender. The impossible one. One of his ancient publications was discovered by a researcher. His need to be seen, his energy changed, his mind became more clearer, started teaching without waiting, nothing, taught for the pure joy of sharing knowledge. For the first time in years, he began to enjoy what he did without being obsessed with the result, and, as with all the spiritual paradoxes, in that same state of surrender. The impossible one. Herbert's ancient publication was discovered by a researcher international in a few days. Its article was published in a recognized magazine weeks later. They invited him to a conference as the main rapporteur. Herbert did nothing to provoke that, he just stopped loving him with despair. The ancients knew the mystical traditions around the world. They have taught this paradox in Taoism. It is said that when you don't do everything, it is done. In Buddhism, in mystical Christianity, detachment is the key to finding peace. The beautiful thing is that when you let go of your own wishes, the kingdom of heaven can truly manifest within you. Even physics, with its quantum mechanics, has confirmed this. When you're not attached to things, you open up to a world of possibilities. But when you're too focused on rigid expectations, you limit yourself to a single outcome. Let me share with you the story of Leah. Despite being a bit late, their relationship was just in time. Leah had a long list of qualities she wanted in partner, and she was determined to find the right one. She had a lot of great qualities: emotional intelligence, a good sense of humor, spirituality, stability, beauty, and a good salary. She was looking for standards that were realistic. Almost every relationship that began was an undercover casting. The interview began at the first date, and over time, love turned into a sort of evaluation. She felt frustrated because people did not fit into their boxes. There was always something missing after another. She had some standards she was looking for in partner, like emotional intelligence, a good sense of humor, spirituality, stability, beauty, and a good salary. She said she wasn't looking for anything extreme. Almost every relationship she started was an undercover casting, and the interview began at the first date. Over time, love turned into a sort of evaluation, and she felt frustrated because people didn't quite fit her boxes. There was always something missing. At 38 years old, she felt a silent breakdown, like she was breaking up with an old version of herself. She stopped looking for the right person, not because she would have lost hope, but because she felt like she wasn't as hungry to complete something in itself. She started living in a different way, dancing alone at home, going out without waiting. In silence, there's a gentle breakdown. Miro, your list is filled with a heartfelt sadness, not harsh judgment, but a tender sentiment as we bid adieu to an old version of ourselves. That day, she broke it, not because she lost hope, but because it had found a new purpose. It began to live in a different way, dancing solo at home, going out without waiting. She met someone one night in a library, not with expectations or a list, and something deep within her felt at home. They are now married, and she says their relationship wasn't the prize for having waited, but a reflection of being released. How does desire find expression? One night, he met someone in a library, and he was taken aback by how much he felt at home with this person. They are now married, and she says their relationship wasn't the prize, but the reflection of having released their desire. How do you let go of your desire without suppressing it? It's not about denying what you want or pretending it doesn't matter. It's about changing your relationship with your desire so that it can happen. I need it to be happy. It would be beautiful living it, but I'm already complete without this desire. It becomes a cheerful preference, not a necessity, and a vision that doesn't control. Let's talk about something really important: letting go of a desire without losing yourself in the process. It's not about forcing yourself to ignore your desires or acting like they don't matter. It's about finding a healthy balance. I understand that it's natural to feel incomplete without this desire, but it's essential to remember that it's not an obsession that controls you. Instead, it becomes a beautiful open possibility. Imagine a ritual that releases the energy of yearning without turning off the heart of release. This ritual is designed to gently find a quiet space in your heart. You can turn on a candle or just close your eyes and picture a deep desire that still makes you anxious. Feel that desire in your body. Open up your heart and mind to the possibilities of life. Imagine a beautiful, luminous sphere of desire radiating from your heart. Picture it gently rising to the heavens. Now, Let go of that desire. Surrender it to the universe with gratitude, knowing that whatever is meant for you will find its way. Wherever you feel that desire in your chest, throat, or stomach, just picture a little light sphere there. See how it shines. Now imagine that sphere coming out of you and gently floating up to heaven. Picture it, and let it go. I trust the universe, and I'm grateful that if it's meant for me, it will come, and if not, something even better will take its place. Take a few minutes to yourself. Breathe, smile, trust, and make a ritual of it each time you feel that desire. Don't push it. The universe doesn't need to insist. You just need to be open, and to be open, you need space. So, give it space. Let go of the grip, stop forcing life to fit into your plans, and allow life to surprise you with something better than what you imagined. Herbert continues. He used to teach because he wanted to be heard, to share his love of knowledge, and to find peace in the knowledge that his value did not depend on the echo that his voice produced in others. His agenda is full of invitations, your articles are cited, and your name is respected. But you've outgrown all that, and maybe that's why Chapter 9 arrived. The effort is the barrier in silence before dawn. Joseph was alone in the training field. It was his last practice before a national championship that he had dreamed of for years. That moment taught him so much. He put in the hours, studying and practicing every technique and pattern. It had meant missing out on some fun and games, and it had put a strain on his health, both physical and emotional. He was working so hard to become the best, but that morning, under the cold lights of the empty stadium, he felt like something was wrong. His muscles were tense, his mind was full of thoughts, and his heart was tired. What had once been passion now felt like pressure, and what had once made him vibrate now felt like oppression. He wondered, if I've put so much effort into it, why haven't I achieved it? You've been thinking about this a lot, haven't you? And the universe has been giving you a hard time, too. But it's not with words, it's with feelings. You're trying to force something, but you're not letting yourself flow. It's like you've been trying to do this since you were a kid. They taught us to think that working hard is what makes us deserve something. They say you have to fight to get what you want. They say that without sacrifice, there's no reward. They say that everything good costs something. And sure, effort has its place, but there's a point where it stops being a tool and becomes something else. Because real success comes from the soul, not from the ego. It's not about tightening your jaw, but about letting go of the tension. It's not about controlling everything, but about trusting the natural flow of life. The fluid Joseph Master discovered this in the middle of a competition. Right at the start of the party, he made some mistakes. His body didn't respond the way he expected, and his thoughts got the better of him. He tried to make everything perfect, but it backfired. He felt a moment of silent despair, and he surrendered. He literally lowered his shoulders, breathed deeply, and let go of all the stress and worry about the strategy, points, and the result was that he was simply allowed to play. There was no pressure, no stress, just presence. And then, the magic happened. Every movement, every decision, was accurate and spontaneous. It was as if his body knew what to do before he even thought about it. He was effortless and excellent. Even his opponents noticed something different about him. He wasn't just playing better, he was playing from another place, where effort was replaced by flow, where the intelligence that already lives in you comes through. You don't need to strive to feel your heart. You don't have to do anything special to digest your food or regenerate your cells. Life just happens, and the same is true for your purpose, creativity, and connection with others. When you're in sync with the intelligence of life, things just flow naturally. Decisions come easily, opportunities appear, and effort doesn't matter. From the Helen Center, the writer blocked Helen had published 2 successful books, but now she couldn't write a single word. She had tried. Strict creative schedules and unlocking exercises can be tough, but they can also be a gateway to incredible inspiration. One day, he felt so overwhelmed that he decided to take a walk in the forest without his notebook or any specific intention. Surprisingly, it was there, among the trees and paths, where the words began to flow, not as complete phrases, but as whispers. These whispers were like internal images, emotions, and fragments of stories that came naturally, as if they were waiting to be discovered. When Helen returned home, she wrote without stopping for hours. Her creative block had broken. And it was all thanks to the space and effort that allowed her to break through. Effort is a law that governs life from the invisible. The more you push, the more resistance you create. This applies to all relationships. When you press someone, they move away. Creativity is forced when forces an idea drives. Success is achieved when you chase it like a dam. Healing is found when you fight against your symptoms. They are grouped, and the effort is obsessive, born of fear. Fear is a frequency that closes doors. But trust the process, surrender, and let go. These are frequencies that open the heart and allow us to connect with our true selves. Instead of trying to avoid difficult emotions, let's embrace them with kindness and understanding. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by inspiration, let's find a balance between inspiration and rest. Instead of feeling disconnected from our bodies, let's nurture our physical and emotional well-being. Even on our spiritual journey, we might face challenges. Some people meditate to find inner peace and strength. Trust the process, surrender to the flow. These are frequencies that open the heart and allow it to dance. I shouldn't try to avoid the game, but instead, let myself play from a different place. Let's start with the interior, the presence, not the voltage, the inspiration, not the pressure, the connection, not the disconnection, with your body. Even on the inner path, the effort can become an obstacle. Some people meditate with tension, repeating statements, anxious to raise their vibration. Others seek to reach a spiritual state of fighting. But you are already the flower, not striving to open. It does when it is ready. When the sun caresses it, when it trusts. In your own time, your soul also blooms when you stop trying to be successful or perfect. You simply give yourself permission to be. Daily. Exercise a voltage to flow. This exercise will help you recognize when your effort is useful and when it has become a ritual branch barrier of the flow status. Make a pause before starting any important task. Work, conversation, creation, decision. Close your eyes and ask yourself, from where am I doing this? From fear of failure. From the need for validation. From the game and the presence you feel. Body, exercise a voltage to flow. This exercise will help you recognize when your effort is useful and when it has become a ritual branch barrier of the flow status. Make a pause before starting any important task. Work, conversation, creation, decision. Close your eyes and ask yourself, am I doing this from fear of failure? Am I doing this from the need for validation? Am I doing this from the game and the presence you feel? Body, is your body tense and contracted? Breathe deeply 3 times. Loosen your jaw. Relax your shoulders. Release your control. I do this from trust, from calm, from love for the process, not for the result. I act from that place, and if you notice that you return to tense effort, pause your body. It already knows how. Joseph, Shine the athlete, breathe deeply 3 times, loosen your jaw, relax your shoulders, and release the control. I do this from a place of trust, calm, and love for the process, not for the result. Act from that place, and if you notice that you're returning to tense effort, just let your body know that it already knows how. Joseph, the athlete, understood that his mastery wasn't in training harder, but in listening more deeply. It wasn't about repeating movements mechanically, but about allowing the wisdom accumulated in your body to express. The same applies to you. Your heart already knows how to love, your soul knows how to heal, your creativity knows how to create, and your presence knows how to shine. All you need to do is take a leap of faith. Chapter 10, The First Step Towards Freedom. The sun began to appear behind the mountains when Ling reached the bridge. His body trembled, not for the it was cold, but for the weight that was loaded, 2 large backpacks full of gold, silks, and jewels that had accumulated over years of effort and trips. It was his treasure, his pride, and his security. Now, I had to cross a bridge straight hung on an abyss, deep to get to the red side of the mountain. There, a new life awaited him, or at least that's what he had been told. Every step brought the creak of a wooden table under his feet, and the wind sang loudly. At every step, his hands clung more tightly to his backpacks. I can't release your backpacks, he said between teeth. Nothing. I have worked too much for this. But the more I know, the harder it is to move forward. He was holding on tightly, almost as if he was afraid to let go. His legs felt heavy and shaky, and sweat trickled down his face, blurring his vision. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a figure appear. It was a woman with white hair, standing there with her back straight and her hands empty. She didn't move a muscle. I watched, feeling compassion for her. Then, Ling spoke up, saying, "Just opening your heart can save you." He didn't understand. Save what? She looked at the abyss, and then at her backpacks. We all carry backpacks, invisible loads that define us. We carry beliefs, stories, wounds, achievements, titles, and possessions. Routine masks all that we have accumulated along the way. We believe that gives our identity, that protects us, that. He didn't understand. We all have our backpacks, our beliefs, our stories, our wounds, our achievements, our titles, and our possessions. We all carry baggage, and we all need to let it go. But there's a point where all that weight feels like a barrier, and it stops us from moving forward. It exhausts us and distracts us from the path to a new life. We can't cross our arms and take that first step towards freedom until we release that weight. We have been conditioned to see freedom as defeat, but we can choose to see it as a positive step forward. We've all been taught to think that letting go means losing something, that giving up is failure, and that letting go of what we love is a betrayal. But there's another truth: deep release isn't about rejecting, but trusting. Surrendering isn't a weakness, it's a form of wisdom. What you brought with you, you brought you. Here, but not here, is a place where you can let go of what no longer serves you. It's not about rejection, but about trusting the process and being wise enough to recognize that what you brought with you brought you here. It's not about holding on to what's bad, but about being grateful for the lessons it has taught you. What you don't let go of: look, gold backpacks, the clothes, the necklaces. Remember everything he had lived to get each piece, the decisions you made, the risks you took, what he lost along the way. Here, but no further. It's not good, but it has done its job. What you don't let go of. Ling looked at the gold backpacks, the clothes, the necklaces. He remembered everything he had lived to get, each piece, the decisions, the risks, what he had to sacrifice, what he lost along the way. And, on that narrow bridge, he clearly knew that would do it. Getting to the other side was too much, too heavy, too old, too past. For the first time in your life, he opened his hands, dropped a bag, and then the other object slid towards the abyss. And while the wind took something, even more important was released within him: fear. What afraid you may not, gold loads like Ling, but others, invisible pesos, a relationship that no longer vibrates with your soul, a job that stifles your creativity, a self. Imagine a new path for yourself, one that's not defined by your past or by what others think of you. Let go of the guilt that's holding you back and embrace a new way of thinking. It might be hard to let go of the old ways, but they are just part of your story. Like Kai, the monk, who found freedom in letting go of his beliefs. Imagine a world where you're no longer defined by what you think or feel. Imagine a belief that holds you back, a feeling of guilt that stops you from moving forward. Imagine a rigid idea of what your life should be, even though you know it's holding you back. It's hard to let go of these things, because who would want to be free if they had to face all these challenges? Most people don't even try, but that's exactly how you find freedom. Lost Kai was a young monk who got lost in the desert during a pilgrimage. 4 days, he walked around without a clear direction, feeling the heat, the tiredness, and the despair. He wanted to draw a map, wanted to control the road, wanted to impose his will on the dunes. Nothing worked until he surrendered, stopped deciding, and started observing. He saw the wind direction. He noticed how certain flowers grew only in certain areas, how the movement of little ones led them to the same place, and how the desert guided them. He understood that when he stopped controlling the desert began to guide him. Many think that the first step towards freedom is to control the desert, but Lost Kai understood that the first step is internal. Have you ever noticed how certain flowers grow only in certain areas? Have you ever perceived the movement of little ones? Have you ever noticed that animals flee to the same place and decide to follow those subtle signs? After some time, he found an oasis and understood that when he stopped controlling the desert began to guide him. The first step is internal. Many think that the first step towards freedom is an external decision to give up moving and start, but before that, there is an invisible step to release the idea that you know better. Because while the ego shouts, "I have control," life cannot guide you, and freedom is not born when you take control. It is born when you deliver to the upper flow that already knows where you must exercise the ritual of. You might feel like you've reached your limit and can't move forward. But before you give up, try taking a step back and releasing the idea that you know better. Sometimes, when we feel like we have everything under control, it's actually a sign that we need to let go and let life guide us. True freedom isn't something that just happens when we take control. It's born when we surrender to the flow of life, following the path that's laid out for us. The exercise we're about to do is designed to help you take that first step towards your inner freedom. To begin, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and picture yourself on an interior bridge. Imagine that you're standing alone in front of a bridge, looking forward to the life you want to be on the other side. Take a moment to look at your hands. In them, you hold the weight of the world, representing all that you've been through. Let's do this exercise together. It's called the Release This exercise on the threshold. It's designed to help you take that first step towards your inner freedom. To begin, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and feel your body. Imagine that you are in front of a bridge. You are alone, and the way to the life you want is on the other side. Look at your hands. In them, you carry pesos, which symbolize all that. Now, you can't go any further. Observe each object with attention. What does it represent? What part of you holds it? What would happen if you released one? Let them fall. Observe how the wind takes them, feels the relief, feels fear, and then freedom. When you are ready, give the first step on the bridge. You don't need any weight or masks. You are in confidence. Cue, you can no longer follow loading. Observe each object with attention. What does it represent? What part of you hold it? What would happen if you released one? Let them fall. Observe how the wind takes them, feels the relief, feels fear, and then freedom. When you are ready, take the first step on the bridge without weight, without masks, only you in confidence. Do this ritual every time you feel that something in your life retains you but also calls you to release. If everything reaches the other side, it will take another form. When Lean reached the other side from the bridge, he found something amazing there. Carefully arranged in a blanket, all their precious objects were still there. The wind had not lost them. They had been carried by. Hey, if you ever find yourself feeling held back in your life, but also feeling called to let go, try this ritual. When Lean made it to the other side of the bridge, he found something incredible, all their precious belongings, carefully tucked away in a blanket. The wind hadn't lost them. They'd been carried by another path, safer, more subtle, and easier to understand. When you let go of what's holding you back, you might change shape and come back to you differently. When you're ready, the release can come back to you in a different way, from a different state of mind, from a different energy, or it can lead to something even better. Chapter 11, Effortless Manifestation. Walter stared at the screen, where it said 3, Chapter 11, Effortless Manifestation. Walter stared at the screen, which read 3 a.m. around yours. The desktop lights were on, warm cups sat empty, and phrases lay strewn about in their text processor. He had been trying for more than 15 years to publish your novel, had attended writing courses, had rewritten the manuscript 9 times, and had continued to follow all the advice and formulas. Yet, despite his efforts, he felt as though he had entered his soul in each sentence. Without embargo, every publication had ended in rejection or silence. That night, in front of draft number 10, he felt a devastating truth: history is no longer mine. He quietly changed a few things to make his readers happy, and he also took into account the latest trends in the market. I can't keep track of who's involved these days. Then Walter did something he'd never done before. He closed the file, turned off the computer, and sat in silence, quietly crying. He didn't feel like publishing anymore, not because he was bitter, but because he'd come to realize something deeper. For the first time in a long time, he accepted that maybe the reason for writing wasn't to be read, but to feel alive and create something pure. The next few days, Walter didn't work on the manuscript, but he did come by in the afternoons. I was sitting down with a notebook, not to plan a new book or correct the previous one, but to write. And the words just came out, as if they were always there, waiting for me. I stopped pushing them, and that's when I started to really connect with my inner voice, with its creative essence, and with the forgotten fire that didn't need approval to burn. A few weeks later, a friend's friend, an editor, read a fragment of that new text and asked me more about it. and more, you're sharing your creations without even trying. The law of real creation might seem invisible, but it's there. It's taught us that to express a desire, you have to put in some work and be persistent. But what the ancient wise ones discovered and what modern quantum physics is starting to show us is that true creation doesn't come from effort, but from being. You manifest what you want to manifest. What you see around you isn't a response to your goals, but your frequency. And your frequency doesn't increase when you do more. It increases when you're in sync with your true self. Lillian and the imaginary office. Lillian had been struggling for months. She sent out resumes, attended interviews, and even updated her professional profile, but nothing seemed to work. One morning, she felt so exhausted that she decided to stop looking for work and ask herself a different question: what would happen if I lived as if I had the job of my dreams? This wasn't just a statement, it was a decision she made from the heart. She imagined her ideal office and organized her day as if she had that position. Every morning, she dressed as if she had an important meeting, and she began to feel like someone who already had achieved it. He didn't act like he was perfect. Then, a friend told her about a job that hadn't been published yet. It was just what Lillian had imagined. They hired her not because she was pushy, but because she could bring ideas to life. It's all about the difference between seeing things in your head and actually living them. Seeing is imagining. Embodiment is living it from the inside out. Now, it's not about thinking positive or making your board, but about actually making things happen. You become the person who already lives that reality, even before seeing it manifested. You're not acting as if you're acting from a place where that is already true inside you, and from there, the universe. Answer: what's stopping you from manifesting it? Your attachment to the result. The more you long for something to happen, the more lack of energy you project, and the more effort you think is validation. You think, if not, I don't deserve it, but that blocks the flow and identification with scarcity. You keep vibrating like someone. I totally get it. We've all been there. Even if you're super into someone, there's that little voice in your head that's like, what if things don't work out? But here's the thing, nature doesn't stress about making a flower, a tree doesn't push to bear fruit, and a river doesn't plan to reach the ocean. They all just flow with their own rhythm. When you stop trying so hard, you realize there's a creative force within you that knows exactly what to do. Imagine how great it would be if your daily exercise routine helped you create the life you've always dreamed of. Think about the reality you want to create, and picture it as something you can actually achieve. Look at her and imagine that you're already living that life. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Visualize how it would feel to live that reality, and picture how you'd move and talk if you were living it. Keep that image in your mind as you go about your day, and let that energy guide you, rather than looking for external signs. Don't worry about the clock. The universe is always true to the version of itself that exists every night. It's like you've already received it, not by manipulating energy, but because of gratitude. When you feel grateful, you feel more certain and things start to happen. This isn't magic, it's just how the universe works. Everything in the universe follows laws. There's invisible electricity, gravity, magnetism, and also the law of resonance. What's similar attracts what's similar. Your inner state is like a constant broadcaster, and the reality that you experience is a reflection of what you are issuing. Hey, have you ever thought about changing your reality instead of your water shares? Water doesn't write to be like, sold, or recognized. He writes because it's his prayer, his temple. His second book was a hit, and his third one was even more authentic. But the real change wasn't in his career. It was in his relationship with the act of creating. He's not trying to manifest things anymore. He's learning to live in a state of grace. The demonstration is set to take place in the comforting setting of Chapter 12, where Alfred's passion for action is ignited. Every morning, he arrives with a sense of purpose, dressed in his well-loved suit. He carefully reviews his sales statistics, refines his arguments, and prepares with the dedication of a modern warrior. His objective and metric graphics guide him towards each meeting, as if each one were a battle that must be won. Despite the meticulous preparation, something felt a little off. The customers had finished signing the contracts, but they weren't sure if it would all work out. It was like they were carrying each other on their shoulders, and they were strong, but not too strong. I didn't want to spend an afternoon in a meeting room at the Centre Financiero. Alfred saw that Thomas, his biggest competitor, was sitting at the same table. He didn't have a portfolio, a laptop, or a presentation, but he did have a nice smile. He listened more than he talked, and when he did talk, his words didn't come across as forceful, but they weren't empty either. At the end of the day, I met with Thomas, who made the sale, and Alfred. That's when I realized that I didn't win because of my technique. I lost because I was too controlling. In our culture, LA, the ego is seen as a good thing. They say that if we try hard enough, the universe will listen. But if it doesn't work, it's because we're not trying hard enough. Have you ever tried to force a door that didn't open? Have you ever lost health, joy, or love by trying to control things you can't control? When you're dealing with something that's hard, it's easy to get stressed out. But if you add some spiritual direction to the mix, you can turn that stress into something positive. Faith is like a road to presence. True faith isn't about just going with the flow. It's about having a strong energy that's filled with certainty. It's like a deep vibration that says, I trust that's already happening, even if I can't see it. I have faith in the divine order. Even when our mind doesn't understand, it's important to align with the invisible because we know it's more real than what we can see. While force can try to change reality through force, faith can transform it from within. Florence and healing. Without Florence, he had been fighting an autoimmune disease for years. He had tried every treatment, diet, therapy, and alternative under the sun, and each new method brought some hope and more frustration. One day, after a period of silence, Florence heard a woman say, "Stop fighting. Your body appreciates you being here with it." That phrase touched his heart. Instead of searching for a cure, Florence put his hands on his heart and whispered, "Thank you, body. Thank you for not giving up on yourself, even when I did." Is what you do every day from now on. It's easy to trust that your body can find balance on its own. It's a mental act, a way to give energy. And, as in all miracles, your body began to heal, suddenly, not by magic but through a deep change in your vibratory state. Your doctors understood how, but she was no longer strong. Faith is strength. Science confirms the power of faith. Studies in neuroscience have shown that our beliefs alter our biology. The placebo effect is just the tip of the iceberg. Faith changes the chemistry of the body. Epigenetics has shown us that our emotions can influence how our genes are expressed. Quantum physics reminds us that reality responds to our conscious observation. When you have true faith, your energy field and nervous system can change. You can relax and think positive thoughts. This raises your frequency, which reorganizes reality. It's like friction and flow. You look at your surroundings, but you can't reach the sea by pushing. It comes flowing, like a gentle stream, from the flower. I don't know how it knows to open, but it does, when it feels ready. It opens when trust in the light is there. The baby is not born when the mother pushes it before it's ready. When you are ready, because we believe that we must press to accelerate if life itself operates from a rhythm. Intelligent force generates friction. Faith creates space for the invisible to manifest. Exercise, cultivate active faith, and engage in a ritual. The flower's beauty is revealed as it blooms, just as we find our true selves when we trust in the light. Our babies arrive when we are ready, not when we want them to. When you are ready, because we believe that we must press to accelerate if life itself operates from a rhythm. Intelligent force generates friction, and faith creates space for the invisible to manifest. Exercise, cultivate active faith, and ritual. Find a space to calm down with your back straight. Breathe deeply, close your eyes, and let your mind lead you to something you have been trying to force. A goal can be a relationship, a cure for the tension that this fight has generated in your body, where the chest notes in the shoulders and jaw. Now, imagine that you are dropping a great stone on the ground. That stone represents your focus on your breath and repeat to yourself, effort, pressure, control. Imagine the force and trust that I have. I feel the divine time remaining in that state for a few minutes, not you. You don't need to visualize anything, just feel the relief of trust. Do this daily, even for a few moments, and see how your perception and reality change. But how do I know I'm not alone? Fantasizing faith is not waiting for him. Universe, give. I know you want to trust that you already have it, even if you haven't manifested it yet. It's not blindness, it's vision. It's not an illusion, it's certainty. Energy in the clearest signal that you are in faith and not in fantasy is this peace within you. Interior faith does not need tests. Only you need a continuous presence of life. Respond to your faith, not to your strength. Alfred. After observing Thomas, what you want is to trust that you already have it, even if you haven't manifested it yet. This isn't blindness, it's vision. This isn't an illusion, it's certainty. Energy is the clearest signal that you are in faith and not in fantasy. This peace is the sign that you are interiorly faithful. Interior faith doesn't need tests. You need a continuous presence of life. Respond to your faith, not to your strength. Alfred. After observing Thomas, close that ideal calmly to do something that I had never considered releasing to prepare, but stopped controlling. He left his job, but abandoned his need to force. He began to trust flow to speak from the truth, not from the tactic to listen more to observe the synchronicities. As a result, it began to attract unexpected opportunities, customers who arrived on recommendation, proposals that arose without. Close that, and let's do something together that I hadn't ever thought of doing on my own. I stopped controlling, left his job, and stopped forcing. I began to trust the flow, to speak from the truth, not from tactics. I listened more, observed the synchronicities, and as a result, it began to attract unexpected opportunities, customers who arrived on recommendation, proposals that arose without asking, and responses that appeared without asking. My silent faith is doing what my noisy force could not. Conclusion: faith is the force more powerful in the universe. Love needs faith. Healing needs faith. Creativity needs faith. And the soul is expanded when you feel sustained by something greater than yourself. You are not here to hold everything with your hands. You are here to remember that there's a force out there that's always there for you. When you let go of the need to control everything, life becomes a lot easier. When you trust the process and don't worry so much, you can enjoy the journey without all the stress and drama. With a little faith, you can achieve the impossible. But if you force things, you'll only end up stressed and frustrated. Instead, try to live in harmony with reality. That's the key to finding what you're looking for and feeling at peace.